Hey, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are, or whatever time you're checking in the day. I'm Jermaine Wright, your LPC, and welcome to Building Blocks for Mental Health as I empower you to focus on becoming the best version of yourself. So the first thing I need you to do, if you're a repeat viewer, I'm going to say thank you, continue to lock in, continue to check in. Hey, listen, I try to be very responsive. So don't hesitate to leave comments so that we can chop it up on the comment blocks. Always willing to inspire, hope, and provide direction wherever I can in those comment section. And I also use that comment section, to help out with giving me feedback, to let me know what are some topics that are important to you all out there, so that I can continue to develop useful content for you all. So continue to keep chiming in, checking out, keep sharing, share. Let's go. Appreciate that. Help somebody. Now, if you are a first timer, thank you for checking in as well. And the first thing I need you to do is I need you to hit that subscribe button. That's how we continue to keep it going. That's how we continue to keep building our base and keep coming up with topics, bringing more people in, and changing this world, helping people change the course direction of their lives, one video at a time, one video usage view at a time, whatever that's supposed to be. So hit that subscribe button and listen, like and share. If this helps you, or if you find this to be helpful to someone else, don't hesitate to share this information. It's all love, guys, and it's all love, gals, and it's all love, everybody, right? So that being said, today we are going to be talking about something that has been coming up time and time again over the past couple of weeks. It's a very serious issue, and it stems around relationships. And part of what's been coming up in this discussion around relationships is why are relationships so hard to maintain? And nowadays, whether it be 2024 or whether it be just historically, when you look at what we've been experiencing lately, right? So communications, whether it be your personal relationship, whether it be relationships at work, or whether it be romantic relationships, I think for the purpose of this discussion, we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about personal relationships, not so much relationships at work. I will be, delving into that topic at a later time, because I got a lot of thoughts about some of the things that's been going on with work-related relationships. So as it relates to personal relationships or even romantic relationships, one of the things that I'm seeing that's going on in the community is a lack of clear communication, right? So we communicate something, but do we communicate clearly, right? So when you're communicating clearly, you're being specific and you're being intentional about whatever it is, or whatever it is that you need, or whatever it is that you expect, from that individual, in order to achieve a desired outcome. So one of the things that I'm always talking about when it comes to communication is there are 3 C's. There are 3 C's to communication. So when focusing on communication, what we want to do is we want to focus on communicating clearly. We want to focus on communicating consistently. And then you want to be committed. You want to be committed to communicating even when it's difficult to communicate at times. So let's start with clarity. You can't do anything without a lack of clarity. And part of the reason why clarity is so important, because it helps us to have understanding on exactly, whatever it is, what's going on in the situation. So, for example, right, there's a difference between, hey, I'm going to call you back. Then we've communicated, right? I'm going to call you back, right? Versus I'm going to call you back tomorrow at, 7 o'clock, or I'm going to call you back 15 minutes from now. So you see how that changes a little bit, the expectations versus I'm going to call you back, versus when we get really specific and we get really intentional about when we're going to call back or how much time it's going to take for us to call someone back. So it allows us and it allows the other person to be in alignment with what we expect from one another. we understand the gravity of the situation because we've communicated specifically and we've communicated in measurable terms exactly what the expectation is. So that's part of the things that I see in relationships that causing issues, because so many times we have breakdowns in our relationships and we have frustrations in our interactions with one another, because while we do have a form of communication, we don't always communicate clearly. We think that we're communicating clearly, but we don't. And when we're not communicating clearly, it causes things to get really discombobulated. It causes things to get really out of sync, and then we start having assumptions, and then we start having projections. Well, I thought he was going to do this, or I thought she was going to do that, or we start projecting things onto the other person, right? You need to do this, and you need to do that, because we're not communicating clearly, and we're not communicating in measurable terms from a perspective of trying to get to a point of understanding so that we know what we need and we know what we want from one another. So number one of the first things that we want to start looking at is when we're starting to have a breakdown in communication is we want to make sure, did I communicate this clearly? Do I understand this clearly, right? One of the key points that you want to focus on is paraphrasing, right? Paraphrasing and repeating back to the other individual or repeating back to yourself. So before we even jump into communicating back to the individual, I got to make sense of it for myself. So this is my understanding of what's going on. I'm saying it to myself, and then I may rephrase it to the other individual, like, hey, I'll just make up an arbitrary name. Hey, John, this is my understanding about what we just talked about. Are we on the same page about this is what it is, this is what the issue entails, or this is what we want to do, to make sure that we have clarity and we have understanding of exactly what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So try paraphrasing, try rephrasing, take a couple moments to self-reflect on everything that you absorb, because all of these are actionable steps that's going to help you have a greater sense of clarity of understanding what's going on and being able to have an integrated conversation with being on the same page with another individual when we're trying to communicate. The other thing is consistency. I see this a lot. Oh my goodness. So much inconsistency in our communication makes it really difficult to have trust. When you're inconsistent with how you respond to things, we react. And when we're reacting to something, we're reacting on raw emotion, right? When we're responsive to something, we're thinking about it, right? And we're making intentional choices about how we want to address a situation. So I see a lot of inconsistent conversation that causes breakdowns in communication, because if you're inconsistent, for example, like the weather we're experiencing right now, I don't know how many of you are probably out of state, but in Philadelphia or the Philadelphia region, Jersey, and so on, one day it's 35 degrees right now in the wintertime. The next day it's 7 degrees or whatever. And then we get a spring-like day, right? It's like 60 degrees outside, right? So when it's inconsistent with that weather, it can make it really difficult for us to prepare, to take the necessary preparatory steps that we need to dress accordingly, so that we're not at risk of, falling victim to the weather conditions outside. Same thing in communication when we're inconsistent. One minute you're easy to talk to, 1 minute you're understanding, 1 minute you're patient, the next minute you're irritable, the next minute you're reactive, the next minute you're explosive, right? So when those type of things are consistently happening in the conversations where you're essentially being inconsistent, it makes communication that much more difficult. And it makes it difficult for us to have sustainable and healthy relationship dynamics, because the communication is so inconsistent that it's very difficult to have trust in a relationship. And when you don't have trust in a relationship, then it makes it really difficult for us to be honest about what's going on within the situation. A person may tend to be very avoidant, right? They won't say much. They may disengage. A person may tend to be very, they may tend to internalize a lot of what they experience with you, right? So it's not that they're avoiding it, but they'll be very short, right? That's a little bit different. So avoidance is all about total disengagement. I'm not saying nothing, my name Bennett and I ain't in it. Internalizing is kind of like when you ask someone that if they're okay, and you kind of know that they're not okay, but they say, oh, I'm okay. They're internalizing. Or they're giving you very indirect, unclear communication, right? Kind of talking around it. That may be a sign that somebody is internalizing. Another reason why internalization of feelings are so important and so problematic, because once eventually it's going to spill out. So when you're internalizing things, because you're not saying how you really feel, you're not saying what you really mean, and we're not getting to a level of being able to resolve the things that are going on in the inside, it shows up in other areas of our life. So with emotional eating, things like emotional eating, things like having problems with sleeping throughout the night, having a lot of anxiety, right? Even depression. Depression can also stem from a form of internalizing your feelings and internalizing your thoughts, not expressing things, not avoiding, trying not to feel things that you need to feel. That's how those things spill over when we're always holding things in. Being really irritable or just snapping sometimes. Like, you just be in the mood and the next thing you know, you just snapping, you're cussing people out, because that's a sign that there's things going on internally that need to be resolved, right? So one of the things that we want to do is we don't want to internalize things, right? Number one, in order to not internalize, we have to have safe spaces. You have to have safe spaces to be able to share your authentic thoughts and your authentic feelings so that you don't have to hold all these different things in. I always tell people all the time, the right people, the right conditions, and the right situations will bring out the best results. So, sometimes we have to let go of something in order to reach for that thing that really is good for us. So when we're looking at consistent communication and we're noticing that we're in situations where the communication is very inconsistent, sometimes we have to face it, and there may be an opportunity to be able to work through that by focusing on being more clear. But then sometimes what we have to do is we have to be prepared to let go of a situation that doesn't really serve us. That's not disengaging. That's just letting go and being cognizant of the fact that this situation probably is not congruent with having a healthy dynamic to be able to get what you need when it comes to having consistent communication with somebody. So my last C that I am going to go over with you all today, and I appreciate you logging on. This is a really good conversation, and I hope that you get something out of it. Matter of fact, I know you get something out of it. We want to talk about commitments. Listen, y'all, we got to stop giving up. We got to stop giving up. We got to start offering a little bit more grace. I think we got to be a little bit more patient, and we got to be a little bit more understanding, because nothing ever, nothing that was ever meaningful, nothing that was ever worth doing, came from ever just taking the easy route. And I know that communication can be hard. I know lots of things can be hard, but we get to a better degree of really benefiting from situations when we lock in and we remain committed to working through it despite how difficult it is at times. You get more out of it, and for real, you get the best results out of it by being committed. So think about it. One of the things I always think about too is, like, I use a lot of sports analogies, and some of the best performers, some of the best achievers, when we think about greatest athletes of all time, have had to be very committed to continuing to show up, continuing to practice, continuing to work on their skills, continue to work on learning their team, continuing to work with different people to get to a point of success. That's commitment. It takes a lot of commitment to be able to do all that, right? So you learn through these different experiences, you refine your skill, you read the room, you learn from other people. Regardless of how difficult it is, it's necessary to your growth. You have to be willing to go through a certain level of adversity, right? I'm not talking about trauma. I'm just talking about things that are difficult. You have to be willing to go through a certain level of adversity to get to a point of progress when you're looking at where you want to go in life. You want to learn a new skill. Let's say you want to get a college degree. All right, well, that's going to take a certain level of commitment. You're not going to just show up on day one, enroll in college, go for a couple of weeks and bang, there it is, you graduated. No. If you want to study to be a doctor, or if you want to study to be an entrepreneur, you're trying to get an MBA, all right, you're going to have to be committed to going through a certain level of school that's time-oriented, that's going to allow you to eventually get to that progress point where you achieve your degree or you achieve your certifications, and now you're ready and you're able to go out here and do the things that you want to do in your life. Those things are going to be difficult. Those things are going to be, and some of those classes are going to be more difficult than others. You may have to take a statistics class. You may have to take some trigonometry. I don't know, right? You may have to take some laws, some legal classes, right? Whatever it is that you have to study along the way. But it's through allowing yourself to go through that process, and it's through developing discipline. It's through developing understanding. It's through learning to utilize relationships and being committed to your goal that you get to a point of progress. So, 3 C's to communication that we talked about today. We talked about having more clarity so that we have understanding. We talked about having more consistency so that we have trust. And we talked about having more commitment so that we don't give up and we don't give in when things become challenging in our life. So that's my J Talk to today. I hope you found this information to be helpful. I'm Jermaine Wright, your LPC. And once again, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe as I empower you to continue to build into becoming the best version of yourself. I'll see you soon, and take care of yourself out there.